All right, guys, so on this video, we're going to talk about loading the shoulder and how to load the shoulder and what to look for when loading the shoulder. This is more of a problem-solving video for specifically the shoulder. On the previous video, we talked about unloaded shoulder exercises and stretching beforehand, kind of doing like a prep work. This is just going to go into now loading the shoulder, right? So a lot of times, goes for almost any exercise that we do or it's just philosophy for our facility is we like to teach the client by showing the client first how to do something unloaded. Let's say in this example, a shoulder press, right? I'm going to show somebody how to do a shoulder press unloaded, and then after that, they're going to mimic me. I want to see him from the side, from different angles to see what it looks like. And then I'm going to do it with weight, and then I'm going to have them do it with weight, right? That's how I teach somebody how to do something. But this is more of an overall compass because we're going to, on these 4 exercises we're going to teach you today, we're going to take that approach. And the reason why this is a problem-solving video is because we see 3 main problems, not only for the shoulder, for most things, is the problem of mobility. Somebody lacking mobility to be able to get to that end range of motion. Somebody lacking the strength to continue from one exercise or from one weight they can do it really good, and then the next one they cannot. That's probably a lack of strength. And then the other one is body awareness, not knowing what muscles to turn on, or the body naturally not turning on specific muscles so they can't get to that end range of motion. So we're going to try to talk about those 3 problem-solving skills as we go through these 4 exercises, which is a horizontal push, a horizontal pull, a vertical push, and a vertical pull, right? We're going to start with none of those 4 because it's a single joint. So let's talk about pull-aparts.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So pull-aparts are a single joint exercise that we use with almost any client. It's the first loaded exercise we'll teach you, but as Roger said, we're going to show you what it looks like without the band. I think a really important takeaway too from removing equipment from people is when you're dealing with someone that has either bad body awareness, and I wouldn't even say bad, just lacking body awareness, is that if I take a tool away, it also decompresses the brain a little bit, right? I don't have to think about it so much. I can test the exercise with just my own body before then I add load to it. So a pull apart, what you're gonna do is you're gonna have your palms up to the sky. You're gonna set those shoulders down and back, which now you're very conscious of what that means. And then I'm gonna squeeze the band with my hands as I pull my shoulders down and back, bring my shoulder blades together. And a cue I use a lot is you're almost breaking the band across your chest.
And notice how the shoulders don't go up as she's doing that, right? That's one thing we're gonna look for is her shoulders shrugging as we're doing that. That just means that, number 1, they might be going too far back, so we gotta make them go a little bit further forward. Or number 2, they just need to be conscious, body aware of pulling their shoulders down as they're going through the exercise, right?
If you're having the person do it body weight with nothing and they're already pulling their shoulders up, that should be a really good indication to you that you have to get a really light band for them to try it if you're gonna have them do it loaded at all. So now I'm going to take my purple band. As a coach, I would demonstrate first with the band and then allow the client to try after me. So I'm going to have a little bit of slack between the middle of the band and my 2 hands. I'm going to extend out ahead of me, pull my shoulders down and back, and then break that band across my chest as I feel my mid-back working. This would be a great time to stand behind the client and point out where you actually want them to be feeling the exercise.
Yeah, so if she's facing the wall, and that way you can see, I'm going to be behind her, and I want to have my fingers in the middle, and I want to cue her on pinching her shoulder blades together while keeping her traps down, right? If she's doing that, we're good. I'm going to ask her, are you feeling down here or up here? Where are you feeling the most, Heather?
Right in my shoulder blades.
Right in her shoulder blades. That's the right answer for this exercise. So this is a single joint exercise because as you keep your elbows locked out, you're not using your elbows to pull apart, you're using your shoulders. A lot of people, when they're starting out, they like to start with the elbows bent to help initiate the movement. That is a compensation pattern. That's what we're trying to look for, right? For people to stay away from that. If you start seeing that, you have to reteach it body weight, right? Keeping the elbows straight and see if you can do that. Teaching with a lighter band, that'll be second. Once they get that, they move on to a stronger band. This is our second variation of a band. It's purple. The reason why we're teaching you guys this is going from an unloaded to loaded is a big difference. People being loaded start doing different things and different compensation patterns. So we get ourselves into more questions that need to be answered on our side as a coach, right? Mm-hmm. Anything else on the pull apart?
The pull apart can be described as a postural exercise, strengthening the shoulders, also mobilizing the front of the body. We don't run into many people that don't need to be doing pull aparts. A compensation pattern also that we didn't talk about is flaring the rib cage. A lot of times when you ask people to bring their shoulders back, they naturally go like this. So you want to make sure that when they're doing the pull apart, yes, their shoulders down and back, but they're not pulling through their chest as well, which we'll go over that a lot more.
So that's in a horizontal plane of motion. Now we're gonna talk about vertical plane of motion. It's also a single joint exercise because you keep your elbows straight, or at least you're trying to. We're gonna do hanging scap retractions. So we can do this one of two ways. Heather's strong enough to do it straight up and hanging off the bar. If we have somebody weaker, what we would do, and we can talk about this in the in-person session, is we would put a box underneath her feet and we would have her put most of the weight on her feet while keeping her elbows straight and going up and down, right? So we already talked about the 6 planes of motion for the scapula. This is exactly the same thing, but being hanging is under load, right? So go ahead and pull your feet up a little bit. So now Heather's completely hanging. From here, if I would tell her to do this, which is the upwards and downward rotations, before she started, to make sure she understood how much she can move there, I want to see if she can get the same movement without bending her elbows. So as you can see, her elbows are straight, so she's not putting any pressure on her elbows. All the pressure is coming from the scapula, her lats mainly. You can see how much range of motion she's getting. Heather, come ahead and come off and try to do the upper rotation, downward rotation drill. So she's basically getting the same amount of movement here that she is in the other one. That means that she has enough strength to get the full range of motion. Most people, when they start this, they don't have the full strength to pull themselves all the way up and all the way down than they can without load. That's one of the reasons why we put a box and make it a little bit easier for them, is to put weight in their legs and let their arms do a little bit more work. So essentially unloading them a little bit, where then eventually we're gonna start loading them more and more as time goes on.
That's also an example of volume. If someone can get 1 or 2 reps here, but it's their first month training, it makes more sense to elevate their feet and allow them to get the 10 so that there is better connection in the brain to the muscle.
Yeah. So that's a single joint approach on retraction, protraction, upward rotation, downward rotation. Let's say you wanted to do elevation depression. That's basically your shrug. You would take 2 dumbbells or a barbell. You would go up and down, and on the down part, you also want to push down. That's training the full range of motion of depression, not just the up part, right? That's examples of a single joint exercise on all 6 ranges of motion, right? And now we're going to go into our double jointed. So basically now we're going to start using our forearms for everything. The first one we're going to try and do, we're going to do our chest press. So I'm going to get this bench. Heather's going to get her weights. We're going to try to teach you guys at an angle what this looks like. All right, so the first thing we do is we teach clients how to do it unloaded, right? So I'm going to show Heather when I'm standing up. This is what it looks like, right? I want to make sure I understand what the lat is supposed to do when I'm doing a chest press. And for a lot of us that don't know, our lats are a big part of doing a correct chest press, right? Otherwise, the load is going to be taking a lot on the shoulder. When I'm teaching somebody how to do a chest press, I have them lock their shoulder blades together. That's your set point. From here, while their dumbbells are here, you're going to pull it in and pull it up. And as they're doing this exercise standing without any load, I'm trying to see if their lats are engaging. If they're feeling comfortable with me touching their lats, I'm going to try and see if they activate even a little bit when they're pulling back. It should feel almost like you're pulling a row and then pushing, right? Heather, go ahead and face that direction. Go ahead and hands in front of you. So now I'm going to ask her, Heather, I already showed her, right? So I'm going to have her demonstrate it for me. Heather, I'm going to have you pull your lat for me down. There we go. So now her lats are set, right? Same thing's going to be on a chest press facing up. And now we're going to bend the elbows, bring it close to your chest. Make sure I'm still feeling her lats, you're still feeling tight, and now you're going to press away. I'm going to have her remind her that her knuckles are pointing away at the top of the ceiling. In this case, it's going to be towards that wall, and then push away. Good. So that's she's demonstrated. So I demonstrated without weight, she demonstrated without weight. So now I'm going to demonstrate the form with weight, and then she's going to demonstrate the form with weight for me. I want to make sure that you can see this guy right here. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to be on the bench. I don't necessarily, and the first time I'm teaching this, I'm always going to just, I'm going to hand them the weights always, but this is going to be a conversation for a different day. We don't have to worry about the legs for now. We'll talk about the legs later. But when I'm teaching somebody new, I always have their legs up just in case they have the lower back pain. I'm going to always start with my chest out, like I talked about, reset my shoulders. Heather's going to be behind me, spotting me, but I will show you that later also. And I'm going to press away. So Heather, the way you're going to do this is you're going to start with both dumbbells up. Both knuckles are going to be pointing up. I'm going to have you go down slowly, bring it right around your chest level, nipple line, and then you're going to press away. As you're going down, I want you to think about pulling your shoulders down and back, not shrugging up, right? And as you're pushing up, same idea. You're going up. Sometimes I'll describe it as a J curve, where I'm going down and I'm drawing a slight J while pulling my shoulders back, and then same thing coming up. right? For some people, that might be a better cue to do. Am I missing anything on this?
No, looks good.
Okay, so now I demonstrated it to Heather. I'm gonna have her do it. Let's do this. Perfect, so a horizontal press, in this case a dumbbell chest press. We're gonna press up. I'm gonna make sure, okay, squeeze your lats, take your chest out, and press away. If you can see this, she's not pulling her shoulder blades up while she's going down. A lot of people will shrug their shoulders up. That means they don't have no scapular stability on their shoulders, right? Or their scaps are locked up, they can't move the right way. So for me, this is good. We don't have to do any prehab work. Go ahead and relax. You can go ahead and step up. Let's go over some problem solving skills for this one. So for this one thing that you might have to do is, let's say they go up with their straps, we might have to open up their chest. So we might have to do some stretches on the wall like we did in the last video, which is the wall pat down. Anything else that we could do?
Precursors for it?
Anything, yeah.
Yeah, definitely wall pat down, definitely pull aparts are a great way to get people to understand, like we did in the first single joint, and then manual as well, like unloading someone and having manual pressure.
Yeah, and then one other thing that we could do is if somebody feels slight pressure on their shoulder, let's call it pain in this case, they say pain, we might decrease the range of motion, right? We start building that range of motion, let's say down to a 90 degree or a little bit less, instead of going all the way down to the chest and then up. And once we build that range of motion, we build confidence with that client, we'll start trying to get lower and lower. If the case is the shoulders can handle it. The other thing that we might do if they have no lat awareness is if we're doing a double arm press, we might do bands between the wrist. And if when they're going down, they're pulling the band and weight together, that's almost like doing a pull apart while you're doing a chest lift or a chest press. So it's forcing your lats to go into a retraction and pulling back with your shoulders. That's another way to teach that. We can go over then in person if you have any questions for that. Anything else on that one?
No.
Okay, so now let's go over the one arm, or not the one arm row. We're gonna go over the
two arm row.
Double arm banded row. So I'm gonna have Heather be at an angle here. I'm gonna demonstrate for her. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sit, and on anything banded or cable, it really matters where the band is attached to in terms of height, right? If it's too high most of the time for a row, you're gonna start activating your traps to compensate. You wanna have the band at an attachment point at or below your chest level. I'm not gonna do it without weights. So first thing I'm gonna have you do is demonstrate that you can first do the execution of the exercise without weights. And we're gonna keep our shoulders back. I'm gonna have her pull like she was pulling the bands, but show me that she can pull without shrugging and then push away. Let's say that she did that already, and let's say she showed me that she can. The next level would be showing her the exercise with the band, right? So I always, when I do band work, I'm gonna make sure the band starts taut. I don't wanna have any slack on the band because it's gonna put more, it's going to make the client really uneasy when they're pulling that hard to pick up that much unweighted band to a weighted band. That transition is going to be really weird for them. So I'm going to start with the band taut. I'm going to retract my shoulders. I'm going to pull back. I'm going to release. And I'm going to try and see if I can almost go into a protraction and then retraction, pull back, and back down. Some clients have a really hard time understanding that. So sometimes in a row, we don't bring protraction until much later in the client's life. So what we'll do is we'll retract, pull back, and just go into as far forward as possible before they release a retraction again, and then we'll do it again. Am I missing anything on that?
No, I mean, you can relate any type of pressing to pulling because a lot of positions that the shoulders are in are the same, right? Like my shoulders, the way I was for a chest press, are gonna be very similar to the way they were here. And sometimes that's helpful for the client. They're like, okay, they're actually similar. It's not like two totally different things.
So now I'm gonna have Heather do this for me. And I'm just gonna make sure I'm the coach. I'm gonna try to feel her lats are engaging, feel the right points of contact are happening. And all right, so Heather, go ahead and set your shoulders. So by setting her shoulders, I'm talking about sticking your chest forward. There's a lot of different cues that we'll go over later on this. So now go ahead and start pulling your elbows back. So that right there, I can feel her lats. Heather, do you feel your lats activating? Good. So one other thing I ask clients on this to make sure that we're hitting the right areas. A lot of times it takes questions and answers or pointing to the right thing. I'll ask her, hey, are you feeling your biceps more than your lats? And if she says, I'm feeling biceps a little bit more, she's probably pulling the wrong way, right? She's probably rounding her shoulders a little bit forward. So there's a lot of, like that. There's a lot of things that we can go about here and about addressing the problems. Any other problems you can come up with?
Sometimes people feel their forearm and biceps too much if they're over gripping the bar.
Yeah, so you don't want to death grip the handles. We're using handles right now instead of the bands themselves just because we find it most likely that people won't complain about the handles. And a lot of times it's about the client experience, right? We want to make sure the client, it doesn't take a lot to load up the handles, and the client has a much better time holding on to something that's sturdy than something that's going to hurt their fingers, right? Let's see, am I missing anything on this? No, I think we're good on the attachment points. Okay, so next one we're going to do is we're going to do pull downs. So we're going to do a downward rotation one, right? Upward and downward rotation. So we're thinking about if the scapular is set, when we're doing a pull down, they're moving this way. Instead of rowing would be this way, right? In this case, I would demonstrate to Heather, I'm going to be facing the camera. I'll demonstrate to Heather, hey, I'm going to have you hang onto those handles, and this time instead of pulling down and back, or instead of pulling straight back, you're going to pull down and back. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to pull my shoulders down, and at the bottom, I want to make sure that I get my thumbs or my knuckles as close as I can to my chest as possible. Some people have really end range problems, meaning they cannot get all the way down here. They might end down here. That could be one of two things. That could be the band's too tight for them, or the cable's too strong for them. First, you should measure that person can do this body weight, can do this movement, can set their shoulders back, and they can touch their chest or their clavicle with their thumbs. They can do that. That means that that range of motion is there, but they can't do it when they're loaded. So that's another problem we have to try to fix, right? How do we fix that? By trying to maybe do a couple more stretches beforehand and see if they can do it afterwards. If they can, then it might not be a mobility thing. It might be, it could be that their body's just designed like that. So we have to kind of be aware if their biceps are overacting or something like that. As I'm going down, I'm pulling, I'm squeezing my shoulder blades together. I'm not shrugging, right? Because when I see this, that means that they're compensating with their traps. I want to make sure I'm using my lats and then pull back up.
Some other ways you can deal with either end range of motion or elevating shoulders is also taking away a part, right? Like once again, going from a double arm to a single arm. We're going to show you the double arm, but a really easy way to get someone to maybe grasp something a little bit easier or get the body to understand is to drop down what you're asking of them, right? So get rid of one side, just do one side at a time so they can focus on what you're asking them, and that can help you kind of know where you need to go next. Hey, is this a mobility issue, or they just need to do this more often so that they understand it better?
And that's not just for this. This is for the row, this is for the chest press, for anything we talk about. Going from double to single arm is a must if you feel that they would understand it better like that, or they have a stronger side than the other, right?
It's also really important to always give them reasons to connect things in their brain. So like Roger was showing you on the chest press versus the row, that's retraction versus protraction, right? So back to your 6 ranges of motion, and that's something they know by now. Same with now we're going overhead, so now you're doing rotation of the scaps. Reminding them of that helps them build that knowledge, and they'll remember in the future.
And then, so now I'm going to demonstrate the exercise with the bands. Basically, same thing as the row. I want to have the bands taut already from the top. What I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you pull down. As you're pulling down, you're bringing your shoulder blades down. My thumbs are touching my chest, which is a good sign without me shrugging. And then I'm going to come back, right? So I'm going to have her do this exercise also. And I'm going to go in the back and feel her lats. I'm going to feel to make sure that there's upwards and downward rotation, right? So that's a straight arm. There you go. Exactly. So I can feel it when she's extending her elbow almost all the way. That's when the rotation really happens. But for the most part, do you feel your lats or your biceps more?
My lats.
Her lats, right? So I'm asking her if you're feeling her lats or biceps. If she doesn't even know what that means, I'm asking her, do you feel this or do you feel this more? A lot of times pointing to the specific muscles help them understand which one they feel more, because they might not associate muscles with terminology. One of the things that we also don't want to necessarily get into, but there's a lot of times different things we can do for back pain here. We'll talk that in the in-person session. Anything else?
No.
All right, perfect. So let's move on. We're going to do our last one. So we did a horizontal press, a horizontal pull. We did a vertical pull. Now we're going to do a vertical press. Our vertical press we're going to show you today is going to be a dumbbell double arm shoulder press. We're using our power blocks for these. So on a dumbbell double arm shoulder press, what we're looking for is we're looking to address a continuum of a line, right? So on a lockout and a shoulder press, if I'm looking at my hand should be right on top of my heel, right? If I'm looking at from the angle on the side, let me get inside a little bit. So if I'm looking at here and my heel is in front of my hand, that I'm not in line. The other one that could happen is I'm here and I'm arched, so my hips are not in line. So that's probably a lower back thoracic issue, right? So we're looking at, that's where we're gonna demonstrate it body weight first. We're gonna see if they can even do it body weight. If not, we'll give them a couple stretches, try to do it again and see if they can do it again. If they can, we'll move forward with the lift, and if they cannot, we have to decide, are we gonna move forward with the lift or are we gonna go a different route? So let's talk about moving forward with the lift. Let's say, I'm gonna demonstrate it first. So Heather, I'm gonna have you grab 2 dumbbells. We're gonna just go over this exercise first, body weight. I'm gonna have you face me on this, knuckles up to the sky. You're gonna go up with both arms. You're gonna press, you're gonna keep your belly and butt tight, and you're gonna come back down. I'm gonna look at you from the side. I'm gonna see if there's a line. Go ahead and demonstrate it for me. Let's go about 3 to 5 reps. There you go. So as I'm seeing, I don't know if you can see her feet, but her hands are right on top of her feet with her butt and her shoulder in the middle of it. That's one straight line. We want to make sure we always achieve that line whenever we have lighter or heavier weight. Let's see, anything else on that so far?
No, definitely a good thing to have them watch you from a lateral view, because it looks very different than it does front on.
And you as a coach, another thing to add on, should always walk and watch from a different angle all the time to make sure you're able to see different things being affected, right? Problem solving skills start at being able to watch different things from different angles. Okay, so now we're gonna grab the dumbbells and I'm gonna have her do the same thing. So we know that she can do it without any weight. So now if she can do it with the weight all the way up and down, that means that she's solid, right? The weight's light or the weight's good, and we can push her on weight. If we don't see that, I'll go over that. So she's squeezing her butt, she's keeping her belly tight, she's not flaring her rib cage, right? She's keeping it compact. A really good thing you can use is a cough to set your diaphragm in place. If you do that usually sets your diaphragm down. Okay, hold it for the top. So Heather does have a problem is that she's too mobile. So in this case, she's the opposite. She's going really far back with her hands and her body and the rest of her body's in front. That's another problem with too much mobility. We need to stabilize that. She knows that already, so we're not gonna go over that. Right now she's set in place, so she fixed herself because she's really good at that. So she can do that. So she can be loaded more in this case, right? Let's go over some issues that we see with some other people. Go ahead and do it with your hands a little bit more in front. Some people can only do it this way, and even okay, Heather, let's say I don't like that, right? Put the weights down and show me what you could do body weight. And let's say she still does that, right? That could be multiple issues. That could be a mobility. So I might add a wall pat down, and if I see that, I'll add a wall pat down, open up her shoulders a little bit, and then go back and see if she can do it better. Body weight first. If she can do it body weight first better, what do we do?
You can switch to single arm.
You can switch to single arm. That's a different one. So let's say it's just a single arm. She can do it on one side, and we see, oh man, that's perfect. Her alignment is set. Let's see the other side. And then the other side is where we see the issue. Oh man, maybe that one goes a little bit too far in front. So maybe her left trap is a lot tighter, or maybe her left biceps a lot tighter. So then we might have to start training her unilateral instead of bilateral on that. And the reason being is because if we train both arms together and we see this, then we're not able to fix this one arm by itself and spend some time on it, right? Am I missing anything else here?
Just the idea of some people might never get a full shoulder lockout. Is it worth still training that?
Yeah, so I think everybody should be, we as a facility think that everybody should be always training all 4 ranges of motion in terms of horizontal pressing, horizontal pulling, vertical pressing, and vertical pulling. So let's say somebody cannot, we spend months with them and it's still over here like a 70-degree angle. Is it worth taking out? No, I think it's worth still training that while still working on the mobility with them.
Especially with the age of people we work with, working with a lot of 50 plus, 60, 70, 80-year-olds, that's one of the first ranges of motion they lose is overhead, being able to get things out of their cabinets, right?
Because they're hunched most of the time, right? And they're obviously going to lose that range. If I'm hunched, I can't really reach up with the arms straight, right?
So the reason at which you're doing things with people like that is slightly different, right? Hey, I want to make sure whatever range of motion they have left, I'm at least maintaining and working on versus, well, he's 20 years old and he has poor range of motion. Okay, there's other ways I can go with that 20-year-old versus the 80-year-old I'm looking at slightly different. Yeah,
and the other thing is pain. Pain is a big indicator of what we can do and what we can't do. If somebody has pain going overhead, that's probably a movement we're going to limit a lot, and we're probably going to work that in a deloaded way. Essentially, have them lay down and just have them try to get their hand over their head and see if they can touch their thumb to the ground. That's a really big exercise you can do. We can go over that in the in-person session, but pain will guide us. If somebody doesn't have pain doing this, we can load it a little bit more while also working on mobility. So we're hitting both ranges with mobility and strength. Anything else? I
mean, just circling back to the whole idea of this video segment is the most common ranges of motion used in the scap are protraction, retraction, and upwards rotation and downward rotation. The depression elevation are things you see the least of, but we still try to make sure that our facility we're using all different ranges of motion, because working with general pop, people tend to not move enough. So if we can get them to use all the small muscles and all the different ranges of motion, we're doing our job.
Yeah, and then these are just some exercises that we decided to go over for the purposes of teaching. We'll go over a lot more in the in-person session. And if you have any questions on these exercises, please go over with us on the in-person session or just let us know. Yeah, thank you.